The year is 2017. My 1999 Toyota Camry just broke down going 70 miles an hour on the I-10 freeway back home at 11 p.m. I had to get on one of those city bikes to ride it to a coffee shop job that I had to pay rent. And I asked myself a question. Should I just quit? Not the coffee shop, freelancing. Because at that point I had been freelancing for almost a year and it wasn't going very well. I'd been telling people things had been going great, that I was working with cool clients, trying to book big projects, trying to build something. But meanwhile, I was counting tips to see if I could cover rent. I was borrowing money from my brother to actually cover rent. I was refreshing my inbox to see if I got a response to a pitch that I had sent weeks ago. And I was watching people who I went to school with post about these promotions they were getting while I was washing dirty dishes in the back of a coffee shop. I had staked everything on this freelance career working out, not just financially, but socially. I was living from job to job. My identity was wrapped up in being a freelancer, and the gap between the success I was projecting and what I was actually experiencing was eating me alive. That was almost 9 years ago. Since then, I've produced a lot of music videos for the Chainsmokers, one of them hitting over 100 million views. I've worked with other artists like Tiesto and Illenium. I've worked with celebrities like Kevin O'Leary and Russell Wilson, big brands like DJI and Adidas and Pure Protein. Along the way, I doubled my rate overnight in one single negotiation, and I wrapped up everything I learned in this book I published a little over a year ago called What Gives You the Right to Freelance. So what changed? That's what this video is all about. This is how long it actually took. These are the moments where I almost walked away and then the lessons that I learned that made all the difference. If you're thinking about starting a freelance career or you're already freelancing and you're realizing it's harder than you expected, then stick with me. Because I wish someone had told me when I started what I'm about to tell you. Let me tell you about the early years. I graduated college in 2016, and during my last semester of college, I had an internship at an ad agency. And what I realized working at a bigger traditional ad agency was that there was this hierarchy. There were the people who made the creative decisions, and then there were the people who had to make that stuff happen. And I realized that if I stayed in this ad agency path, I would have to work for years and years before I was the one who could make these creative decisions. That's what initially inspired me to start freelancing. I wanted to be in control of my own creative decisions and bring my ideas to life for clients. I had a little bit of success at that time in 2016 running social accounts, so I started my freelance career managing social media for different brands and businesses. Because I had success one time, I thought I was ready, and I was wrong. I didn't know anything about business. I didn't know how to find clients or how to pitch them or how to keep them. And when I think back on 2016, I just remember a lot of anxious moments because I didn't know how I was going to pay my bills. Like I mentioned in the intro, I had to borrow money from my brother to make it happen. I had to work at coffee shops to make it happen. I was trying to project this identity of success and forward motion, but in reality, I just realized I didn't know how to run a business at all. So after about 9 months of freelancing, I realized this isn't for me. There had been too many nervous breakdowns, too many anxious days, and I thought, maybe I'm not cut out for this work. I need to go get a normal job. So I started applying for normal jobs and I couldn't get one. No one would hire me. And that's really when I hit rock bottom, when I realized I have no idea what I'm doing in business. I don't have enough experience to get hired at an agency again. The only way out of this dark time I'm in is to go through it, is to learn how to make this work. So at that point, against my will, I got another job at a coffee shop. This was my third time going back to make coffee shop money washing dishes in the 9 months since I had graduated college, and I was feeling like a total failure. But this time was different. This wasn't me bringing my ego into the coffee shop, a creative who had a college degree, who deserved all these great things handed to him. I set my ego at the door of that coffee shop, and I walked to the back of it, and I decided to wash as many dishes as I could. Now, washing dishes was like the lowest level job, and we all kind of took turns doing it because nobody wanted to do it. But I started volunteering to wash dishes because when I was in the back of the coffee shop washing dishes, I could take my phone and a headphone and run it up one side of my shirt and put it in one ear so my manager couldn't see. And I could listen to business podcasts to figure out how I could make money as a freelancer. This was a huge turning point for me. Somewhere along the way of volunteering to go in the back and do dishes and listening to these business podcasts, I realized that if my success was going to happen, it was 100% on me. I was 100% responsible for learning the things I needed to learn to make my business possible. And so if this were a movie, this would be a little bit of the montage moment where you would see me getting my hands dirty, washing dishes, listening to podcasts, having realizations come over me, going home at night, working on my freelance business, implementing what I had learned, and slowly over the course of a few months, I gained a little bit of traction. This was a big turning point for my career. So next, let's talk about the slow build in my career over the course of the next year or two. This was in the middle of 2018, honestly, until the beginning of 2020. All these lessons that I had learned, I tried implementing, and they started working. And then sometimes they wouldn't work, and I would figure out why they wouldn't work. And then I'd learn a new lesson and try it again. And it was this awesome cycle of just trying to figure out how to make this business work. One of the things that nobody told me when I started freelancing that I want to tell you now is that trust takes time to build. And this was one of the big reasons I was banging my head against the wall early in my freelance careers, because I felt like my ideas were just as good. My drive was just as strong as anybody else's. So why wasn't I getting the work that other people were getting? And it was just because trust takes time to build. I hadn't been in the industry long enough, and I hadn't had relationships with my clients for long enough for them to really trust me to bring their ideas to life. So even though I thought my ideas were just as good, I just hadn't been in the game long enough to have that trust with those clients. And that's what I wish people had told me, because that's really what was happening over the course of the next few years. I was showing people I'm not just here to make a quick buck. I'm not just here to try to stroke my ego. I'm really here to help you out. And that becomes clear to clients and collaborators over the course of years, not over the course of months or a few pitches, right? During this time of freelancing and being broke, I realized I didn't know as much as I needed to know about business. So I remembered something magical that exists, which is the library. And I rode my skateboard down to the library. I signed up for a library card, and I checked out all the business books that I could find. They would only let me carry, one or two at a time. And then I read it and swap it out, read it and swap it out. This is really what has inspired me over the course of my career to create content, to publish the blogs that I do, to publish my book, is because these books were essential in teaching me how to make a living when I really needed to learn how to make a living. And that's why I wrote this one, because I didn't find very many that were specific to the freelance business model. I was reading other business books and taking ideas and trying them out in this business model. That's why I packed it all up in here about freelancing, because there was nothing like this that I could find at the time. Now, I can't tell you the story of my career without telling you about a character who I love, whose name is Jeremiah Davis. Jeremiah and I had been friends since college. We moved to Venice Beach together right after college, and immediately upon moving, his career took off. And so he was filming tour videos for the Chainsmokers. He was traveling the world, making all this cool stuff, making a name for himself. He had a Snapchat original series, and I was watching his career move like this, and it was just such an honor to be in the front seat there, seeing this happen, helping him out with various things as they came along. Then, about the end of 2017, he got contracted to do a music video for Tiesto. And he came to me and he said, "Hey, do you want to produce that?" I had never been the producer of a video before, but I said, "Yeah, let's do it." I needed the money, I wanted the work, and someone finally trusted me, so I jumped on it. And I didn't know much about producing, but I just figured I could try to get all the details in order for his shoot so he could just stay focused on the creativity. So I made the schedule, I booked the accommodations, I found the locations, and then we went out and shot it with a few friends over a couple days. And that was just a really exciting approach. I mean, the budget was tiny, we pulled a bunch of favors to make it happen. But to have a video that pretty soon after that was published by a major artist that I had worked on was really fulfilling and exciting. It felt like finally I have these good ideas and I have these skills to be able to bring these ideas to life. Someone finally trusted me, and here's a real asset. That was just a huge turning point in my career. Then after that, Jeremiah had a number of other music videos and brand collaborations and commercial projects that he brought me on to produce. And so on the fly for him, I learned to be a producer. After working with Jeremiah for a few years, eventually I jumped on a retainer with him to become his main producer for all of his projects over the course of a few years. We worked together on a ton of different campaigns for Movement watches, for Adidas, a number of different music videos for the Chainsmokers. That's really where I cut my teeth in the world of production, made a lot of my connections, and really got my foot up into a consistent retainer to bring my freelance business up to speed, to a place where it could sustain my life and also my lifestyle, doing creative work, but also having a balanced schedule, traveling, learning, creating cool stuff. So another lesson that emerged at this time that I wish someone had told me that I'll tell you now is that you're not behind, you're right on schedule. If you're able to stay in the game long enough, eventually you're going to learn all the lessons you need to learn along the way for all your creative ambitions to come to life. The key is just staying in the game long enough. It's putting up with the hard times, finding a way to pay your bills, to stay in it with people, to build that trust so that eventually your creative ambitions can come to life. When I went back the third time to wash those dishes when I really didn't want to, I was only a few months away from doing that Tiesto video. And from that point, I was only a few months away from booking this retainer. And when I booked that retainer, I was only a few months away from working on these big brand projects. And if I had quit at any point along the way, when I was washing dishes or right after I made a few bucks on that Tiesto video, I never would have realized how close I was to all these creative ambitions that I had. So by the beginning of 2020, I had been on a retainer for a few years, but I wasn't quite making the kind of money that I really wanted to make. And this was a big moment for me because I didn't have a whole lot of experience winning negotiations. I didn't feel super confident as a negotiator. So the thought of approaching my retainer clients and saying, hey, I need to get paid a lot more was really scary to me at that time. There's a lot of people who excel in business who are kind of like bulldogs in negotiations, right? They'll come up on you and they'll bark and they'll, be all noisy and they'll win their negotiations that way. And I never felt like that was me. I never felt like I could be the one who could come and, throw my weight around and really win a negotiation that way. But what I realized over time, building up leverage working with these clients, is that eventually I can become so entrenched in the business, so essential to their business, so useful to them, that when I need to express my leverage and ask for a bigger rate, they can't say no. Even though I wasn't this super hard-nosed, hard-headed negotiator who could go and win, I could still win my negotiations just with a little bit of a different strategy. I hope that's encouraging to you because I felt early in my career that I'm never going to be cut out to make a lot of money in business because I'm not one of these hard-headed negotiators, and that's just not true. If you're able to be strategic about your positioning and strategic about the value that you provide, eventually you'll gain enough leverage to really flex that and make a lot more money. So I made that negotiation in the beginning of 2020, and of course we all know what happened in 2020. By the beginning of 2021, I was again a full-time freelancer. I was off these big retainers that I had been on during 2020, and I was entering a new season of being in full control of my business with a lot more confidence of how to approach clients, grow my business, and negotiate to win bigger rates. Up to this point in my career, I was excited to work on any kind of project. The bigger the project, the better, because it meant I learned more, it meant that I made more. That's all I was searching for. What's the next biggest project I can work on? After I went full-time freelance again and I had control over my business, I realized that bigger wasn't always better. I decided to try to specialize a little bit more. I had worked on a few projects that were a little bit outside of my comfort zone as a producer. They stretched me in ways that I wasn't willing to stretch. They forced me to work in ways and communicate with people in ways that I wasn't totally comfortable with doing over the long term. Pretty soon after this, I got a client creating social content for a major university in Southern California, USC. We were creating a package of really fun social content, interviews with their student athletes right after NIL was legalized, where the athletes could make more money. So we got all these student athletes in to do these fun content series. We took a few of them on an interview series around LA to eat at great taco shops. We had a few of them, including Caleb Williams, now the quarterback for the Bears, show us his favorite video games and play video games. We had a few basketball players show us their Spotify playlists and some of their favorite artists. What I realized about these productions was, yes, they were smaller. Yes, they were more intimate. Yes, they weren't the biggest thing I had ever done, but they felt more like me. I found a style of content that felt like it was more suited for who I was and the skills that I had. If I could create a comfortable environment for these student athletes who weren't amazing on camera, but if I created a great environment for them, I could draw out really good performances and lines from them for these videos. This was a big turning point for my business where I made a choice for my business to work on projects that I felt suited who I was and my passions and my skills, instead of just chasing the next biggest, best thing that I could. So since that project, that has been my priority. Now, I wish I could say that every project is exactly aligned with who I am and exactly what I want to be doing. That's not the case. But over time, I've tried to make decisions for my freelance career that feel like me. I've tried to work on projects and make choices that aren't always the biggest or the best or make me the most money, but feel like projects that I'm interested in, that I really want to be proud of, and that I can sustain over the long term. Telling you this story now and looking back at my career so far, I've realized that this isn't like a grind at all costs story. It isn't a massive success story. It is just a story about me learning to run a freelance business and along the way protecting time for my friends, my family, my hobbies, and myself. That to me is what's so exciting about the freelance business model, is that you can achieve a lifestyle that you love, that pays your bills, and keeps you doing the work that you love and protects who you are. All that is possible to attain. And looking back, it's just cool to see all the breadcrumbs that led me to this moment. You may be watching this video wondering if you're cut out to be a freelancer, if owning a business and designing your own lifestyle like this is something that you really can do, or if it's just reserved for people who are really hard-nosed negotiators or who have a really great business sense. I do believe that everyone's life can be positively impacted by freelancing, whether you're doing that on a full-time or on a part-time basis, making money on the side on weekends to spend it on things that you love or people that you love. I think everyone's life can be enhanced by freelancing. I think it's attainable to everybody. With this mindset though, you won't be the biggest, you won't make the most amount of money, but you will be able to stay true to who you are. And as you're doing this, just keep in mind that your approach, your story, the way you do things, the things you're interested in, that's your secret sauce. That's the stuff that's going to keep you in it for the long term. That's the stuff that's going to set you apart. So don't sacrifice any of that just to make a few extra bucks. Keep that, because that's what's sacred. That's what's going to take you where you want to go. With all this, I will say, freelancing is hard. There are moments still where I am overwhelmed by the work that I have to do or by the pressure that's on me for various projects. That's just the name of the game. Whatever you're not very good at, the things you're deficient at, those become the things that freelancing challenges you at precisely. If you're not good at keeping a schedule, the fact that you can't keep a schedule will be very challenging for you if you're a freelancer. If you're not organized with your finances, it'll be very challenging for you as a freelancer until you get organized. And what a beautiful experience that is, to be challenged in these areas, to grow and change as your business grows and changes as well. So you may be wondering where I am now. At the beginning of 2023, I decided to start investing time and energy into content. And I started putting out a bunch of Instagram content. And after about 9 months of really working hard at it, I had a few videos go viral. Throughout the course of 2024, I started growing my audience to over 65,000 creative people on Instagram. Now we are digging in with YouTube to try to connect with more folks on here. In the middle of 2024, I published my first book, which I mentioned earlier, which is What Gives You the Right to Freelance. This is 50 short stories, lessons about my career so far, bespoke for the freelance business model that are really gonna help you out. So if this world seems like anything you're interested in, if you are a freelancer or you're thinking about becoming one, this book was written really just for you. So freelancing is hard. And because it's hard, you have two options. You can try to figure it out all on your own. You can piece it together. You can make a ton of mistakes. I mean, that's what I did, right? Or you can try to learn from people who have already walked down this road. Not to skip the work, you still have to do the work, things are still gonna be hard, but you can learn from people and connect with people to know that you're not alone in this journey. If this video is resonating with you, I have something else that you're really gonna love. It's a weekly email I send out called Freelancers Only. Every Tuesday at 2 p.m. I send out a short email. It's got an essay with practical tips to help you on your freelance journey. Last week, I broke down the optimal weekly schedule for freelancers. Over 2,000 other freelancers have already signed up for it. The link is in the description. I'd love to see you in there. But I'm not gonna tell you this journey is easy. I'm not gonna tell you you can have it all figured out in 90 days or you can be a millionaire by next year. But I am gonna tell you that it is possible to have a lifestyle doing the creative work you love as a freelancer. You know, sometimes I think about that version of me, the version of me in 2016 and 2017 that was having these nervous breakdowns, that was washing dishes, that was so overwhelmed by it all. You know, he didn't know what was going to happen in the months and the years that followed. When I look back on my career now, 10 years in, I can honestly say that at the end of every year, I was a little bit disappointed that I hadn't made more progress. But looking back now over the last 10 years, I'm astounded by all the things I've been able to do. I'm overcome with emotion of how many things I've been able to do and what I've been able to accomplish, the things I've been able to learn. I feel so lucky. So this journey you're on, it's not a 6-month thing, it's not a 1-year thing. It'll take a few years before you really generate that momentum. But take it from me, It is so worth it. So if you're watching this video and you're feeling a little overwhelmed, a little stressed, maybe you're sitting in a car wondering, is this worth it? Should I quit? It is worth it. And you can keep going and you can figure it out. And I believe in you and I'll be here for you along the way. Thanks so much for watching. If this was helpful, please subscribe. That helps me a lot too. Got more videos coming. I'll see you in the next one.